Hello and welcome to this session on running the Bristol Half in the summer holidays. We're delighted to have you along today. We're aware that some of you may be accessing this in a group, perhaps watching it with colleagues you'll be working with in the summer, whereas others of you may be looking online at this at home. But whichever way, we're delighted to have you here today and very pleased to hear that this scheme is going ahead. What a lovely opportunity for our children to spend some time with others and have some good fun in the summer holidays. In today's session, we're going to be considering the purpose of the holiday activity and food sessions. We're going to think about what they're for, why you want to run them and what you want the children to get out of them. We're going to consider children's well-being and mental health, the needs of children and how we can provide those. And we're going to look at three really important areas which will help you to structure the sessions and think about children's needs. Throughout the training, you'll hear two different voices. We are Chris Calland and Nicky Hutchinson. We're both specialists in children's behaviour and mental health. We're Bristol based and we've worked for over 25 years in schools and settings all around Bristol, specialising in family and children's mental health and well-being and emotional well-being. So we're very pleased to have this opportunity today to talk to you about this and to consider your sessions that you'll be running. We'd like you to begin by thinking about what you want the children to gain from the half sessions in the summer. What would you like the children to be saying about your sessions by the end of the summer? How would you like them to benefit? What would you really like them to get out of it? If you're in a group, this would be an ideal time perhaps to stop the slide and really talk about it together. And if you're on your own, it might still be good to stop the slide and make a couple of notes about the things you feel are really important about the sessions. If there's anything that you're wondering or that you would like to share with the group but you're on your own, then it might be a good idea to write a couple of notes or note any questions that you'd like to explore further when you get to talk about it with your leader. So we hear so much about modern childhood now, don't we? And in lots of ways we feel we can't necessarily keep up with all the online world that they live in, and everything is so fast changing and moving for them. And it's sometimes tempting to think that they've changed completely and that they don't want the same kind of things that they used to want, or that they're very different from we were when we were growing up, those of us who are older. So have children changed? Well, essentially they haven't. And that's quite heartening, isn't it? Given the opportunity, they like the same things that children have always liked. And there was a survey by UNICEF of all the children in the world, really, asking them what they valued and what it was that they liked doing best. And it wasn't iPhones and computer games and all that stuff. It was actually spending time with friends, spending time with family, and spending time outside. So that was really reassuring to hear, because actually childhood hasn't altered. Perhaps the world around them has altered an awful lot, but children are still wanting the same things. And we think that's really relevant to your half sessions, because hopefully in the summer you're going to be providing some of that good fun outside and some special time with friends that perhaps they've really missed out on over COVID. There were concerns about children's mental health before we had coronavirus. For the last few years, a lot of experts have felt that children's mental health has been suffering. There's been a variety of reasons for this, perhaps increase in drug and alcohol use, parental breakdown, poverty, exam pressure, the fact that social media and online lives are 24/7, all these things, and the complex list of factors really that can affect children's mental health. But then along came coronavirus, which just added to the problems, and a lot of children said that they were very stressed over this time, and it was felt that children under 11 suffered the most, and perhaps those who were preschool were really affected by the lack of social contact. So before lockdown, there was a statistic from the Children's Society which said that 1 in 8 children had mental health problems. But now, after COVID and after lockdown, it is said that 1 in 6 children have mental health concerns. So it really has increased following lockdown.
So let's have a little think before we think about what we can do and how we can provide that support for these children. Let's have a look at what sorts of behaviours we might see for those children who are struggling a little bit with their mental health, or struggling with some past traumas that they might carry with them. So the things to look out for, and the things that you may see in the children that you're working with, being a bit tearful. You might see children being clingy with you, but ultimately you can see two different ways of experiencing this. They can be clingy, but they also might be isolated and withdrawn and difficult to connect with. You might see some children who struggle socially, poor social skills, and find it really difficult to work with other children, or play and share with other children. Some will find that more difficult than others. You might see some children who talk about physical symptoms. So they talk about stomach aches, or feeling sick, or having a lack of appetite. And that can really be a sign of children who are struggling with anxiety. We often carry that in our stomachs, and they may complain of feeling ill, and of course they may be ill, but always bear in mind that those kind of issues around stomach ache and sickness and inability to eat well can also be a sign of anxiety and stress in children. The other things to look out for is that some children will be might show that kind of hypervigilant behavior. They always have to know what's happening. They're always on edge. Those children who have learned that they can't trust adults in their lives and need to take control and be aware of what's happening around them at all times. And those children, you may see that kind of hypervigilant behavior when they come to your sessions, particularly a new place that they're coming to. They'll be particularly edgy and a little bit worried about this new space. So be aware of those children. And sometimes we see, children don't often tell us how they're feeling. They often show us through their behavior. So we may see behaviors that aren't so easy in the sessions. You might see difficulties in following instructions. Children might present as particularly negative or aggressive and uncooperative. So sometimes we see behavior and assume it's just a child who's just struggling to connect with others, or but there may be something underlying that. So it's always a really good idea just to stop and ask ourselves what might be going on underneath the behavior. What are children trying to tell us by the behavior that they're showing us? It's always a way of communicating. So really important to bear that in mind. One of the ways that we're going to be thinking about how the sessions can run effectively is to look at this really clear and simple model that we call human hungers. For those people who are interested, it comes from the theory of transactional analysis, but it's a really clear and simple model. And we've got the shape of a triangle here because what human hungers talks about are 3 key areas to consider to enable us all actually to feel that we can thrive in all sorts of different situations. So we've got a triangle because the 3 things need to be in balance. And let's just have a look at what those 3 things are. So the first thing is stimulation. We all need to feel interested and engaged and excited by the things that we do to enable us to feel positive. And children need that stimulation and engagement, and will need that within your setting. Of course, children need that recognition. They need to know that you see them as a person individually, that you recognise their skills and qualities. And we're going to be thinking about how you might do that. But just like us, we as as workers within a setting also need that recognition. We need to know that we're valued for the work that we do in the setting. We need to know that the adults know us personally and recognise when we do well within our job. And the last one is certainty. And we know, of course, that so many children have had, well, many of us have had so little certainty over the last year. It's really been pulled, the rug's been pulled from under us, and everything has felt very uncertain. So what we're saying is that within the holiday club, if you can provide as much certainty as possible, it will help children feel safe. Just like you need the certainty of knowing where the sessions are going to take place, how much money you're going to get, what the hours are, what the expectations of the job are. Children will also need to know with as much clarity as possible and as much structure as possible that there is some certainty in their days. So these key areas are the issues that we're going to be looking at through this session and considering in order to be able to create a session for children which enables them to thrive and to feel safe and to do well. And so just as a start point, I'm not sure how you're listening to this, whether you're at home on your own or whether you're in a group, but as a start point, I would think of those three elements, and just for yourself, think about how you would provide certainty within that setting, how you as an individual worker could provide that certainty for the children that you're working with, and maybe jot down 2 or 3 ideas for that. Consider how you would provide a level of recognition for the children. So how you would connect and make relationships with those children, how you would give them the message that you value them. And again, just jot down 2 or 3 ideas for how you would create that relationship and build those connections with children and show that recognition. And then consider stimulation and how you would provide stimulation for those children within the settings. Have a think about the sorts of activities that they may be doing. Consider the sort of age of the children you might have and how you might provide a range of different and interesting activities for the children to engage in, and how you can make it safe for them to access those activities. And if you consider that, if you're sitting on your own, consider it for yourself and just make those notes. But if you're in a group, perhaps have a discussion with the people around you and jot down some ideas together about how you would address those 3 key elements. And remembering that this is a triangle, and the reason it's a triangle is what you want is to have those 3 things in balance. So if there's too much certainty and it's too rigid, but there isn't enough stimulation or recognition, that's not going to work. Or if there's too much recognition without any certainty and stimulation, then the children aren't going to be engaged. So it's really about holding that balance between the 3 things. So if you can just jot down 3 ideas for each of those 3 key elements, and then we will move on to have a look at them together and share some ideas of what you can do to provide something for each of those key things. And as you go, you might want to add some notes and some ideas to the things you've already written down. So have a little bit of time to do that, and then we'll move on. So we're going to look at recognition first, and it's really important that we think about the messages that the children need to receive across all of these sessions, regardless of the age of the child. But what's really important for them is to have a message, a clear message that says, I'm important and I matter here. It's so important that the children feel they belong in the setting. And so welcoming the children into the setting, knowing their names, finding ways to connect with them as they come in, finding out about them as a person, will really help build that relationship. And that's utterly important. You can have as many fun activities as you like, but if the children don't feel that they matter or that they belong, and they don't trust the adults, then it doesn't matter what the activities are. They're not going to be wanting to come or feel safe and secure. So it's really important that we build those relationships and get to know the children as individually as much as possible. And it may be that we connect particularly with individual children, or we have a specific key worker relationship with some individuals who particularly need that. But there needs to be that trust, and there needs to be that understanding that the adults want me to be there and that they know me. Really think about how you recognise and praise the qualities and talents that children show. So being very specific about things that you see children doing. So, thank you, Jimmy, for waiting so patiently, or I really appreciate the way you help the younger children, and naming that and sharing that with the child is a really powerful way of making that connection with children, and helping them see that you like them, and that's the bottom line, so that they can be themselves and authentic, and they know that you like seeing them and you like being there with them. And it's that kind of building that relationship that we do through always welcoming them, showing an interest in what they do and what they're interested in themselves, being stable and consistent, and we'll talk more about that in the certainty bit, and being available for talk, because communication is so key. Some children never really feel that they have an opportunity to be heard, and of course that's so important for children, and it's key for us that, to find opportunities to listen to children, and of course we want to be encouraging and enthusiastic, engaging them in activities, but also show understanding when they seem to be reticent, and having those chats with them to help them feel secure enough to talk to us, and let us know when they feel that they can't get engaged for one reason or another. So it's looking for those opportunities for communication, and that might just be walking in the woods. Certainly children don't often like that kind of sitting down intensive one-to-one eye contact, but it's really nice to have those conversations as and when, sometimes sitting alongside when you're playing a game with a child, or you're going for a walk, you ask them to help you with something, and you can just notice with them, or you seem a bit down today, or I wonder if you'd like to talk a bit more about that, or are you okay? I notice you seem a bit quieter than usual. So offer them opportunities to talk to you. And I know that you'll be doing training on safeguarding, and you'll know that you can never offer full confidentiality to a child who might in those circumstances disclose to you. But it's always important to open up those avenues of communication, and keep communication as open as possible. And of course we talk about talking, but the key thing is listening. And what we sometimes do with children is we tend to rescue, or we trivialize. And what I mean by that is, if a child tells us that oh, little Jimmy won't play with me today, what we tend to do is we either jump in to rescue. So we say, right, come on, Jimmy, come over here. I want you to play with so and so. So we try and solve the problem for the child by rescuing, or we trivialize. So we say, don't worry, go and play with somebody else. And both of those things come from a very positive place. We're trying to help, but actually it's really important that we enable children to tell their story, and we notice with them how they're feeling. It's the active listening, where children really feel heard, is such an important part of building that relationship. So what we're trying to do is sort of encourage that open, tentative, explorative talk. And we're encouraging children to recognise their feelings and to talk through how they're feeling. So, for example, the sorts of things you might say is, oh, I wonder if you could tell me a bit more about that. Or, oh, you're looking worried about that. Always praise talks. So always tell them that you're so pleased and proud of the fact that they've come to talk to you. So I'm really pleased you've come to talk to me about it. And be tentative. You know, you're not sure, but it sounds like you're feeling upset, a bit down, a little bit left out. Am I right? So check in with them, but notice the feeling underneath what they're telling you and name that feeling. Many of our children don't have the emotional literacy, the words to say how they feel. So we're helping them articulate and tell their story. And then empower them a little bit. So rather than telling them what you can do or telling them what to do, help them think about what might help. Wonder with them what might be the next step. So, you know, little Jimmy's not playing with you. Oh, that sounds really difficult. It sounds like you feel a little bit left out. Am I right? Is that right? You know, I wonder what you could do under those circumstances. What might be the next step? You know, so we're helping children to think for themselves. Let's think together about what you could say, and empowering them and building their resilience. Of course, it may be that the children really don't know and they shrug and they look to us for help, and that's fine. But let them think first for themselves. If they can't think, then it may be that you say, would you like me to think with you? Perhaps would you like me to help you think about what you could do? But we're basically helping them to A, tell their story, B, recognize the feelings and really feel heard, and then C, see if they can come up with a way to help themselves. Really, really important skill, active listening. One I wish I'd known more about when my own children were little. It's really powerful. So really thinking about that when you're working with children. You know, have a little think about these additional things that we're talking about in terms of recognition. See if you can add any of those to the notes you made at the beginning. And it's that relationship, it's that connection, it's that listening. It's those moments where you connect and you look to praise and value each individual child in your care. Interestingly, as children get older, quite often they don't want to hear, or they certainly say they don't want to hear positive praise in a very public way. So sometimes you have to do that very on the quiet or in a very low key way. So you might just put your thumb up or tap on the shoulder or a quiet word to say how impressed you are with something they've done. Or you might use that whole thing of overhearing, so that the child overhears you talking to another adult about how impressed you are with that child. Or you end the session in saying something positive to the parent about how much you've appreciated having them in the session today and what you've really been impressed by with them, and how helpful they've been, or, you know, just passing back a little parcel of positivity to the parent, and them hearing that can be a really powerful way for them to feel positive and raise their self-esteem. So we're going to think about certainty next. And as we were saying, had very little certainty over the last year and a half. But we know that children really thrive on feelings of safety and security and having a structure around them. So you have a look at the notes that you made around certainty and have a think about how you will provide a plan for the session. You know, really think about how the children will know what's expected, and what the roles and responsibilities are for the sessions that they're going to be in. How will you warn them of what's coming next, you know, what they're going to be doing this afternoon, or what they're going to be doing after lunch, or what they're going to be doing tomorrow? Because when children feel secure about that, then they feel it lessens anxiety. It feel much less anxious about what's going on. So providing routines, as many routines as possible. Really think about the beginnings and endings, how you greet children and how you bookend the sessions. And then little changes through the sessions, those little transitions can be really tricky for children who are particularly anxious or may have some mental health concerns. So warning them of change, maybe showing them a little visual cue of what a little list of the things that are going to be happening over the session that they can cross off and come to the next one. Or using phrases like now and next, having a now we're doing this and next we're doing that, or when and then. When you've played football, then you're going to have lunch. When you've done the craft exercise or activity, then we're going to have a story. So really clarifying the structure for children and giving them a little bit of a warning and a heads up. So we've got 5 more minutes and then we'll need to clear up. So helping them see that there's a structure and a plan for the session can be really helpful. And there will be rules and expectations within your sessions that your team leader will have talked to you about, I'm sure. So being clear yourself about what those rules are, what the expectations are in the session, and how you can articulate those so that they're very simple, very positive, very clear, and you can remind children of the rules to help keep them on track. So really thinking about that certainty and structure, because when things are a little bit open, that's where children can feel a little bit anxious and unsure. So it's all about feeling safe and providing that safety and security and scaffolding for the children. And of course, it may be that some children find it difficult to manage their behaviour at times. We know, as we said right at the beginning, that children sometimes show us their distress through the behaviours that we see. They may struggle to connect with other children well, or to share, or to manage group activities. They might find it difficult to show empathy or to put themselves in somebody else's shoes. And that's quite common for children who are struggling with their mental health or may have struggled with trauma in the past. So there needs to be some clarity for you as a worker with the team and the team leader about what the rules and the protocols are for when behaviour is challenging. But I just wanted to touch on it here in the training and the sorts of ways that we need to respond, and also remembering that all behaviour is an attempt to get needs met. Sometimes children are doing something that's not helpful for them, but in their own way they are trying to get their needs met. So a really good thing to do is to ask yourself what might be behind the behaviour. Very often we say to children, why are you doing this? Why are you poking somebody with a stick? Why are you being rude? Why are you running away? Why is a really good question, but it's a really good question to ask ourselves. It's not a brilliant question to ask children. So instead of asking them why, you might talk to them about where they should be or what they could be doing or where else they might be, what else they could do, rather than why are you doing the thing that you're doing. And ask yourself, I wonder why this is happening. Have I provided enough certainty? Is there enough recognition? Is there enough stimulation? How can I get in to help that child communicate? Could we go off and have a little walk and a chat? So really thinking about what behaviour might be telling you. And a few little tips really. So distance any challenging behaviour away from the child. So there's a couple of things I mean by that. One is if a child's doing something you don't like, rather than making it personal to them, you can just refer to the rules. So, remember, Johnny, that we look after the equipment in our session. Do you remember that's one of our rules? So you kind of refer to the rules rather than them personally, rather than saying, you know, Johnny, you're ruining the equipment, or stop doing it. You're just reminding him of the rules and making it slightly distanced. You can talk to a child about who they are and be surprised by poor behaviour. So that's not like you, Johnny. You're usually really careful with the equipment. I wonder if there's anything else going on. So help them distance the behaviour from the child. You always really like them. You value them as an individual, even if you don't like the behaviour they're showing at that time. So we almost provide the identity for them that they step into, this positive identity that we've built up, where we recognise them as a kind and helpful and positive person. And then when they show us behaviour that isn't like that, we can then be surprised by it and a little bit shocked. Oh, that isn't like you. And help them think of how they can get out of it. Ultimately, what we're doing is we're saying what we want to happen rather than what we don't want to happen. It's the classic, if we tell a child not to run or don't hit, the words they hear are run and hit. So much better to say, I need you to walk, or we need to show kind hands. So being very clear about your expectations and articulating that in a positive way rather than what you don't want them to do. Talk about what you want them to do. Or you might praise individuals nearby who are behaving. So little Johnny's being very loud, so you just say to little Jimmy, thank you for being so quiet. I can see you're ready to listen to the next bit of instruction. So you're labeling very descriptively the behavior that you want, and you're giving attention to that child who is doing the right thing rather than to the child who's doing the wrong thing. And as we know, quite often some behaviors are very much about gaining attention. So that can be a way of supporting children in their behavior. And of course, if things get very challenging, as I said before, it's important that you have protocols and arrangements with the team leader about what you will do if there is some unsafe behaviour. But really thinking about some scripts around that for yourself. So, you know, recognising the feelings in the child. I can see you're upset. Seeking help from another adult. So having a plan in place for that. If there has been an incident in your setting and behaviour has been challenging and it's been a difficult situation, always really important to follow up after the event and to build a bridge again with the child. So it may be that you remind them of the rules of the session, but also that you connect with them and recognise with them that it was difficult perhaps today, but we're really looking forward to seeing you again tomorrow. Helping them feel like they'll still be welcomed back and they've had time to calm and to reflect a little bit, but that you're having a fresh start next time when you see them, so they feel safe and secure to come back in. That's going to be really important for the children. So thinking about exactly what you might say in those sorts of situations can be helpful. So using a bit of something called emotion coaching, where you notice the emotion with them, a little bit like we were saying before with listening skills. So it looks like you're feeling, you know, upset or angry or worried. I wonder if that's because you're finding it hard to share, or you don't want to play the game that we've thought of, or, you know, so, you know, wonder with them what might be happening. Then normalize it, because often children feel more anxious when they feel different or isolated. So you might say, but that's okay. Lots of people feel like that when they're asked to do something they don't want to do, or I often feel like that when I've got something I feel difficulty with sharing. So, you know, you just kind of normalize it for them, but then set some limits and hold some boundaries. But it's not okay to swear or shout or push somebody or run away. All of those things are not okay. So you hold those boundaries and then help to problem solve with them. So I wonder if it would help to come and have a walk with me, go and see Mrs. Jones, have a sit down in the quieter area, play football with little Jimmy. So you're really thinking about helping them move on from those feelings. And when they're really feeling distressed and upset, you'll need just to focus on helping them calm down. So finding space for them to calm down. The emotion coaching needs to be either just before they get to that point, you know, just when they start to be a little bit the behaviour starts to be a bit tricky, or after the event when they're starting to calm down. So, you know, really helping them to reflect a little bit on what happened. So we've thought about recognition, and we've thought about certainty, and now we're going to think about stimulation. So have a little look again back at your notes, the sorts of things you may have written down as to how you will provide as much stimulation as possible for the children that you're working with. And of course, planning the activities is important, you know, asking the children what sorts of things they would like to do, and providing resources for that, and having certain areas that you're focused on. Really having distinct key areas in your session so that children know when they go there that there is a particular activity that they can do in that space. It's quite important to have one area which is more of a calm space so that children can go there when they want to do something a little bit quieter, maybe do some reading or quiet drawing, or listening to some music. And when they're doing those things, you might just notice with them that those things can really help you feel calm when you're feeling a bit anxious or worried, and maybe own it yourself and say, oh, sometimes I do this when I feel a bit upset, or I just need a bit of quiet time. So you're teaching them ways to help themselves calm down and help themselves feel a bit less anxious, a bit calmer. You might have a little pot of different ideas, so you can jot down lots of different activities, pop them in a pot, and children can just do a lucky dip and take them out as a way of providing a bit of interest and excitement for children who aren't quite sure what to do next. Of course, you're working with children. You want to be having fun every day, and I think children have missed out so much over this last year on just having fun. And so providing as much opportunity as we can for children to engage with each other, do some silly things, have fun, have a laugh with each other, and asking them each time they come in what sorts of things they'd like to do, and trying to respond to that where possible. So really making it interesting and fun. And what you might find is some of the older ones can be helpers with the younger ones, because they actually quite like doing some of the younger activities, particularly over this last year, where I think there's been such a level of anxiety and so many children feeling like they've regressed a little bit, and so letting them play with some of the younger children, suggesting that they're helping the younger children, but actually letting them have that opportunity to engage in those younger activities and younger play activities. Play is utterly important. Dr. Mike Shooter, he was the chair of play in Wales, and he said a lovely thing, which was that free play gives the growing child the cognitive ability to solve problems, the emotional ability to withstand hardship, and the social ability to help each other, and the physical ability to carry it all through. It's the foundation stone of resilience in children, no matter what life might throw at them. So opportunities for play for all the children are absolutely fundamental to the sessions that you're running. And we're hearing so much, aren't we, at the moment, about catching up, children catching up with their work, and a lot of focus on academic learning. Whereas we know that when children can be creative and play and use their imagination, they are learning in that time, and they are developing and progressing and maturing. And so just providing those opportunities for play will be one of the most important things that you can do within the sessions. Of course, I was talking before about how sometimes you need that opportunity to to learn how to calm themselves and to practice soothing techniques. So you're in quite a good position to do that within these sessions. You know, just literally, if you're outside, letting the children lie down and look at the leaves, or look really in detail at something and draw it, letting them get lost in a focused in an activity, and just naming for them that this makes you feel calm, doesn't it? This makes me feel calm. It really helps me when I do this sort of thing. It might be that you provide some books, or you have some things that they can cuddle and help them to bring down those anxiety levels for some of those children. Of course, a lot of children will be highly active and just having fun and running around for a lot of the session. But actually, if you can provide these opportunities, something that some children never have, you might even bring in some bits of yoga or stretching, letting children just be in their bodies and learn some little breathing techniques to help them to calm themselves. So have a look at the activities you've got in terms of stimulation, and notice whether there's a range of things, so that it's not all high octane and high adrenaline, but that there's lots of times for children to be calm and to be creative. Use role play and drama, mask making, to help children explore different emotions and different situations, and also those kind of calm moments which help them just be in their own bodies and experience something a little bit more calming. Really, really important. We know that these sessions have been started to make sure that all the children are going to have a decent meal each day that they're in with you, and that eating experience needs to be as positive as possible, because again, we know some children never have that chance to sit around a table, or to sit around with their friends, and take turns to talk and to chat and to have that social time as they eat. So thinking about how you organize and structure that eating experience, so and making it the focus very much on being positive and calm, and a focus on social interaction. Keeping an eye out for those children who might be struggling around food, but not making it a stressful environment. Be careful of being judgmental about what children are eating or how they're eating, or focusing on good or bad food. Talk much more about food in a positive way, and as I say, focus on much more the social interactions. You might do something like have a little conversation starter box. So again, you take a little sentence starter out of a pot that says something like, if I won the lottery, I would, and then everybody takes it in turns to say what they would do around the circle. It's a really good social skill for children to learn how to eat together, share food together, and to take turns and socialize in that eating environment. So focus on that and make it as positive as possible. And you've got that fantastic opportunity to do that with the children that you're working with. So we've had the three different areas, the three key areas. You've got your certainty, your recognition, and your stimulation. So from our discussion over this session, just have a look back at your list, and have a think about which one of those three you think might be something that might need a bit more work, or something that you personally could do to enable these things to be in place in the sessions that you're working in. But of course, we know that when we work with children, rewarding and wonderful as it is, it can also be quite stressful. And we were talking about the pandemic earlier, and we know that the pandemic has also influenced us. We've all struggled with the pandemic too. So it's really important that we look after ourselves with this. It's a little bit like when you're on a plane. We always need to put the oxygen mask on ourselves first before we put it on our children, because ultimately, if we don't feel okay, if we don't feel looked after and supported. And if we're highly anxious, it's really hard for us to look after and support the children in our care. So just clock for yourselves how you're feeling, and make sure you put in for yourself activities that make you feel okay. So, you know, having a moment for yourself, just a little mindful moment with a cup of tea, or, you know, making sure in your day you have some relaxation, maybe listening to music or a bit of physical activity, getting outside and doing some walking, or a bit of indulgence, and some social time. Really important to make sure that your days have something in it for you as well, that it's not just about focusing all the time on the children, because actually if you don't focus on yourself, it's really hard then to give out to the children. And I think this is true of all of us. We're all soaking up the media around us, and through social media on our phones, but also the television or on the radio, and particularly at the moment, there's quite a lot of bad news knocking about, and it can just go in by osmosis. So, you know, finding opportunities to turn it off, or to not have that in your ear, so that you can have some quiet time and look after yourself. Really, really key that you do that. And maybe thinking about the others in your team and how you support each other, and remind each other about how you do that for each other as well as for yourself. So have a little think from our session today, about anything that's come up for you, anything that you think, oh, I need a bit more information on that, or I'd like to ask a question. And maybe take this opportunity now just to jot down 2 or 3 questions, or any thoughts that you have, that you could share with your leader, your course leader, or if you're in a group, have a discussion with the people around you about anything that came up for you. And then maybe just think about one thing from the training today that you will remember, or try, or, you know, have a go at, or share with somebody else. I really hope it's been useful for you, and I wish you all the best and lots of luck. I'm sure it'll be fantastic. I'm so pleased that you're going to be doing this such important work with the children over the summer months. And just to say that we will be running a Q&A session with your leaders session leaders over the summer. And so anything that comes up, you know, feel free to talk to them, and they can pass on any questions or issues to us at a later stage. In the meantime, I hope you've managed to write down one thing you'll take away from the session. And I hope you found this session useful for you, and I wish you all the best. Thank you.